Barbara Payton was once a silver screen goddess, strutting in red high heels, turning heads wherever she went. She clinked champagne glasses with Howard Hughes, stood shoulder to shoulder with James Cagney, and raked in tens of thousands of dollars a week. But that dazzling spotlight hid a creeping darkness, scandalous love affairs, nights lost in a drunken haze, and a tragic end that left Hollywood reeling, just 10 years later. She was found collapsed beside a dumpster on Sunset Boulevard, her dress torn, clutching a St. Jude statue, passing quietly at the age of 39. Was it fate, or a calculated plot to erase her? Barbara always flashed a smile, but her eyes told a different tale of pain, betrayal, and buried secrets. Who pushed her into that abyss? Stick with us as we unravel the story of Barbara Payton, a real-life film noir where light and shadow intertwine, leading to a haunting final act. Chapter 1. A Star's Hunger to Shine in the Dark. When Barbara Payton passed, her face was bruised from withdrawal, her purse holding just a few coins, but once. She stood atop Beverly Hills, toasting champagne with Howard Hughes, Hollywood's lights at her feet. Her story began with a little girl in a glittering sequin dress, stepping onto a Texas fair stage, her first red high heels clicking on wood. That was the moment Barbara Lee Redfield, born November 16, 1927, knew the spotlight would be her escape from a stifling childhood. In Cloquet, Minnesota, Barbara's home reeked of whiskey and arguments. Her father, Lee, a cold man, unleashed his anger on her mother, Mabel. When drunk, Mabel, though loving, sank into alcohol, leaving Barbara and her brother in long, lonely nights in that dark house. Barbara learned to smile to hide fear. "I learned to survive young," she wrote in her memoir, her voice heavy with pain, each word like a cut. At 11, the family moved to Odessa, Texas. Barbara's beauty golden hair, crystal blue eyes stirred the town. Mabel, a failed actress, painted her daughter's lips and dressed her in dazzling gowns, pushing her onto fair stages. Was Mabel acting out of love or living her own rejected Hollywood dream? The spotlight bathed Barbara, but it also drew unkind eyes. At a dinner party, when she was just 15, dim lights, cheap wine, and adult laughter mixed with the gaze of a man too close to the family. In her memoir, Barbara wrote one line: "I didn't say no, but I was never asked." Who left that girl alone in the dark? Barbara's rebellion sparked early. At 16, she eloped with William Hodge, her red heels tapping down Odessa's streets, but her parents forced an annulment weeks later. That act was her declaration Barbara wouldn't be caged. Hollywood became her destination, where she believed beauty would open fame's doors. But childhood wounds her father's judgment. Her mother's weakness followed like a shadow. Each new stage, each new name, couldn't erase that past. It lurked behind the makeup, waiting to return, ready to pull her down. Could Hollywood's lights shine bright enough to banish the darkness in her soul? Or were they just another stage for a greater tragedy? Each step in those red heels brought Barbara closer to her dream. But did they lead her into a bigger trap? Chapter 2. Scandalous Romances at the Peak of Fame. One night in 1951, Barbara Payton stepped barefoot from the Chateau Marmont dress torn, eyes red, lipstick still smeared. Passers-by whispered, but none dared look long. Just 3 years earlier, she was Hollywood's brightest star, stage lights embracing her red heels as she walked like a queen. In 1948, Barbara, once a Saba of California model, signed with Universal Pictures. Her captivating smile and sharp eyes had producers begging. Her peak came in 1950 with Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye alongside James Cagney. The film noir made her a star, with a $10,000 weekly contract, a sum that stunned Hollywood. The press hailed her as the most beautiful woman in films, and Barbara basked in the glow, partying on the Sunset Strip, toasting with Frank Sinatra and Lana Turner. But the spotlight hid darkness. Barbara started using amphetamine-laced diet pills, sending her moods crashing like waves. She dove into romances, not for love, but for something bigger: recognition, safety, or just being wanted. With Bob Hope, a married man. She entered hotel rooms hoping for a big role. She didn't cry leaving, But her heart asked, why must a woman so beautiful beg with cold kisses? The affair ended when Universal fired her for breaching morality clauses. A Sunset Strip whisper told of Barbara inviting an actress to a hotel, only to wake to a new role. No one confirmed, no one dared ask. Each morning, Barbara opened newspapers to her name in bold troublemaker, dangerous, a candidate for banning. Tabloid writers like Hedda Hopper made her prey in Hollywood's witch hunt. I just wanted to live. She wrote in, I am not ashamed, but each drink, each forced smile at parties, was a knife to her soul. She felt judged, violated by stares and whispers, as if the world mocked her naivety. Hollywood loved her beauty, but one misstep, and they were ready to crush her. Her scandalous romances were a fire that warmed and burned her. She knew she played a dangerous game, but the stage lights and champagne kept her going. Each night, she stepped out in those red heels, smiling brightly, but behind each laugh were cracks like glass one touch away from shattering. Barbara still smiled at lavish parties, but could the stage lights hide the growing cracks in her soul? Chapter 3. A love scandal that destroyed a glorious career. An actor lay crumpled in a pool of blood, his cheekbone shattered. A woman stepped out of an apartment, her tight dress clinging to her, lipstick still perfect. The press branded her a she-devil, Hollywood. They'd already picked their scapegoat. In 1951, Barbara Payton thought she was on top of the world. But a scandalous love affair turned her from a star into a target of scorn. Those red high heels, once clicking confidently across the stage, now teetered on the edge between fame and ruin. Barbara was caught in a deadly love triangle. Franco Tone, with his aristocratic charm, offered lavish gifts and promises of a stable life. Tom Neal, a volatile but magnetic man, was the spark that set her heart ablaze. She was engaged to Tone but couldn't let go of Neal, whom she called a real man in the hurried pages of her diary. She wasn't chasing love from either of them. She craved safety, validation, something she'd never gotten from her cold, distant father. On September 14th, 1951, Barbara's apartment on the Sunset Strip became a battleground. Tone arrived at dusk, his eyes full of hope. Neal was already there, gripping a glass of liquor. Barbara, drunk on champagne, kissed Tone in front of Neal not out of love, but as a dare. The glass shattered on the floor. Neal leaped up, and with one punch, the light in Tone's eyes went out. Blood poured, bones broke, and Tone collapsed, unconscious with a fractured cheekbone, nose, and an 18-hour coma. Barbara, caught by a glancing blow, stumbled into the bushes outside, her dress torn, her red high heels rolling across the grass. Within minutes of Tone's hospitalization, photos of Barbara in her tight dress hit the front pages. Who tipped off the press? Why were they there so fast? As if it was all staged. A friend of Tone's whispered that he'd found compromising photos of Barbara and Neal, later used as divorce evidence. Was Tone seeking revenge? Or had an unseen hand in Hollywood orchestrated the scandal to erase her? The press, led by Hedda Hopper, painted Barbara as a femme fatale, a moral wreck, turning the public against her. Warner Brothers canceled her contract, major roles disappeared, and she was left with B-movies no one remembers. In the nights that followed, Barbara sat quietly at the Chateau Marmont's bar, a martini. No ice, her eyes empty, muttering old lines from Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye. Each camera flash felt like a knife, each article a new accusation. She felt violated, judged by the world, yet forced a brittle smile. I just wanted to love and be loved. She wrote in I am not ashamed, her words heavy with pain, as if she knew she'd lost Hollywood's game. Tone recovered, scarred but alive. Neal vanished into the shadows. Hedda Hopper kept writing her venom, as if Barbara had stolen every man in Hollywood. And Barbara, she sat there amid the flashing lights, neither crying nor smiling. One question lingered in the darkness: who decided to cross her name off Hollywood's list? Barbara stood there, caught in the camera flashes. But could she keep going? Or had Hollywood already written her final scene? Chapter 4: A Star's Complete Collapse. The police report read Barbara Payton prostitution, $40. But a young officer, staring at her swollen face, whispered to his partner. I used to have her picture pinned up in my dorm. It was 1962 on Sunset Boulevard, where the spotlight once embraced Barbara's red high heels. Now, those heels lay abandoned in some rundown apartment. And Barbara, once the star of Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, was a faded shadow, erased by Hollywood after a fateful love scandal. After the 1951 brawl between Franchot Tone and Tom Neal, Hollywood slammed its doors on Barbara. Warner Brothers tore up her contract, major roles vanished, and all that remained were B-movies like the great Jesse James Raid in 1953, where her beauty began to fade. Booze and drugs became her companions, numbing the pain of a world that turned its back. In 1955, she was arrested for passing a bad check to buy liquor. Her son, John Lee, just 8 years old, hid behind a door, his young eyes fixed on the police cuffing his mother, the woman who was once Hollywood's princess, now bowed by a forged check. I don't want you to see me like this, she whispered to him, her voice trembling, as if she no longer believed in herself. By 1962, Barbara hit rock bottom, arrested for prostitution on Sunset Strip for a mere $40. Her mugshot swollen face, tear-streaked eyes, tangled hair splashed across newspapers, a symbol of a star's downfall. Whispers among old underworld contacts claim Barbara once worked as a high-end call girl for a shadowy figure in Nevada. The name Dick Fortune surfaced in FBI files, then vanished without a trace, as if someone wiped it clean, a director once told the press. Barbara could play any role, but no one dared hire her. Why, no one would say. But a warning had circulated. If she opens her mouth, she'll never work again. Who was behind those threats? Or was it just Hollywood's excuse to cast her out? Each arrest, each scornful glance from passers-by, cut deeper into Barbara's pride. I sold my body to survive. But I'm not ashamed, she wrote in, I am not ashamed. But those words dripped with pain, a cry for help from a shattered soul. She felt violated not just by the men who paid her, but by the Hollywood machine that once worshipped her. Barbara, who once had Hollywood at her feet, now sat quietly on the steps of Sunset Boulevard, her dress torn, mascara smudged. Did someone push her to this low or lost in her drunken haze? Did she stumble into this abyss herself? Barbara sat there, in the shadows of Sunset Boulevard. But was she the victim of a larger trap? Or had she locked herself in her own nightmare? Chapter 5: Final Months of Desperate Effort. By the fall of 1955. The glow of the movie set no longer warmed Barbara Payton's face in Murder Is My Beat. She stared into the camera, her eyes hiding a deep sadness, but audiences had forgotten her name. Once Hollywood's queen, she was now a fading name, her red high heels gathering dust in a corner. Barbara didn't give up, but every effort was like a shadow breaking under the stage lights. She tried acting in Murder Is My Beat, a small noir film, but the magic was gone. She married Tony Provis and fled to Mexico, dreaming of peaceful beaches. But alcohol and emotional scars shattered that hope. A friend recalled Barbara posing nude in a Sunset Strip studio to pay rent. Strangely, those photos never surfaced. Did someone pay to keep them hidden forever? A director whispered. Barbara could handle any role, but no one dared cast her. Someone in the industry said, "We were warned not to work with Barbara. Someone wouldn't be happy." But who was that someone? In 1956, the court stripped her of custody of her son, John Lee. Barbara stood frozen in the courtroom, hands clenched, her pride in pieces. At their final meeting, she hugged Johnny and whispered, "I'm sorry, I messed it all up." The 8-year-old boy looked over her shoulder, silent, his eyes full of unanswered questions. Every visit with her son felt like the world's judgment, not just as a failed actress, but as an unworthy mother. Fleeting romances with men like Marlon Brando or producers only brought more pain. She sought validation but found only disdain. Barbara knew she was falling, each night, in her shabby apartment, a trembling glass of liquor in hand. Her eyes searched for the lost spotlight. Hollywood, once a dream, was now a nightmare. Those red high heels, a symbol of her past, reminded her of every misstep. Could she start over? Or had Hollywood bolted the door, leaving her to fall into the dark? Chapter 6: A Mysterious End for a Fallen Star. In February of 1967. Barbara Payton collapsed beside a trash can outside a thrifty drugstore, her dress torn, hair a mess. Passers-by thought she was homeless, but her hand still clutched a cheap ring from Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye. The red high heels were just a memory. Barbara returned to her parents' home in San Diego, living in a makeshift room heavy with the stench of liquor and cigarettes. Her body was failing, her liver barely functioning, her soul trapped in pain. A neighbor asked if she was okay, and Barbara whispered, "I don't want to live anymore, but I don't know how to die." Her words hung like a desperate cry in the night. On May 8, 1967, she collapsed in her mother's arms, dying at 39 from heart and liver failure. A nurse said Barbara's hand gripped a St. Jude statue, the saint of lost causes, as if she knew what was coming. But what whispers on Sunset Strip hinted she didn't die from alcohol alone. Did someone want her silenced about Hollywood secrets? After her funeral, Barbara's letters and belongings vanished. A friend claimed they might have included an unpublished diary naming powerful figures. Who took them? Her father, Lee, threw out her clothes, the sequined dress, the memory of those red high heels like erasing his daughter. But her mother, Mabel, kept crumpled letters where Barbara wrote, "I just wanted to be loved, but I lost everything." Her death was the peak of tragedy, but a question lingered. Was she just a victim of addiction, or did an unseen hand push her toward death? Barbara once walked under the spotlight. Now she was a shadow on the edge of Sunset Boulevard, the St. Jude statue, her whispers about her son Johnny, and unanswered mysteries lingered like an endless noir film. She left quietly, but was her death natural, or a secret buried beneath the stage lights, epilogue legacy, the cost of fame? Barbara was once a screen goddess, now just a faded name in Hollywood's history books. Yet her eyes on the cover of I Am Not Ashamed still stare at us, as if saying, "I lived true, did they?" Barbara Payton's story is a real-life noir, where the spotlight both cradled and consumed. Hollywood crafts dreams, then uses those dreams to devour the dreamer. Barbara wasn't just a victim, she's proof of the price of defying a world built on illusion. Her memoir, I Am Not Ashamed, is a cry for help, laying bare a life of debauchery and scandal. "I loved men who didn't deserve it, but I never stopped hoping," she wrote, each word like a self-inflicted wound. John O'Dowd's biography, Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, keeps her story alive, shedding light on her forgotten talent and inevitable tragedy. The 1950s demanded women fit a mold of purity, but Barbara dared to live freely, and the cost was exile. Some on Reddit whisper Hollywood erased her for challenging its moguls. Her diary, with its powerful names, remains an unsolved mystery. Barbara's pain was the heart of her tragedy, judged by the press, used by powerful men, violated by the system that once adored her. "The whole world's laughing at me," she wrote, her tone bitter. Yet her love for her son, Johnny, was her only light. At their last meeting, she hugged him and wept, regretting she couldn't give him a better life. Johnny, later a Vietnam veteran with a family of his own, carried memories of a broken but loving mother. Barbara's story warns of fame's cost. Hollywood doesn't just create dreams, it destroys those who step outside its rules. Those red high heels, once clicking across the stage, are now a memory of a forgotten star. Mysteries around her death, from poisoning rumors to stolen belongings, still haunt us. She died in silence. But Barbara Payton's story whispers through old pages, crumpled letters, and an obsession that never fades. Was it fate? Or a crime cleverly hidden by the spotlight? Share your thoughts on Barbara Payton's fate in the comments. Which mystery intrigues you? Who's next in our story? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.